Dateline today features reports on Olojo Festival held in Ile-Ife and others from all parts of Nigeria and the world at large. It is on this note that I shall be saying good evening and welcome to Dateline. Babatunde Bolatito is my name. First, the hard news segment. President Muhammadu Buhari in New York, United States, told African leaders that fighting corruption was no longer a choice but a necessity for the continent's prosperity. President Buhari stated this at an event co-hosted by African Union Development Agency, New Partnership for Africa's Development, and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Expressed his gratitude for the opportunity to serve as AU champion of anti-corruption since 2018. He spoke at a high-level side event on food security response, combating illicit financial flows, and securing asset returns for sustainable development on the margins of the 77th session of the UN General Assembly. A statement signed by Special Advisor Media Publicity to the President, Femi Additional, titled, "At UN, President Muhammadu Buhari rules corrosive effects of corruption in Africa," urged leaders to fight corruption to a standstill, telling fellow African leaders that fighting corruption was no longer a choice but a necessity for the continent's prosperity. He lamented that the continent remained at the far end of the Global Development Index because of the effect of corruption. President Muhammadu Buhari has commended Nigerians living in the U.S. for what he called exemplary roles they are playing in their different phases of endeavor. He urged them to continue on that track to earn the respect of their hosts. The president's media aide, in a statement, President Muhammadu Buhari and Governor Adeboyega Oyetola of the State of Osun have called on Nigerians to continue to promote and preserve cultural heritage for economic development of the country. President Buhari and Governor Oyetola gave the charge at the grand finale of Olojo Festival in Ile-Ife. Our correspondent Adebare Jimakide brings details.
Congratulating His Imperial Majesty, the Honor of Ife, Obaenite Ogusi, on this year's Olojo Festival, President Muhammadu Buhari lauded the monarch and the people for preserving and sustaining the rich culture of the ancient city, urging them to explore potentials in the cultural and agricultural sectors for the economic benefits of the nation. President Buhari, who was represented by the Minister of Interior, Ogbeni Rauf Aregbesola, implored Nigerians to continue to support the security agencies in their resolve to surmount the security challenges bedevouring the country. Lauding the revered monarch for his desire and capacity to sustain the age-long tradition, Governor Oyetola hinted that Olojo Festival is indeed a phenomenal event in the history of Ile-Ife and by extension the entire Yoruba race as well as the world at large. He explained that the ancient city is the only clime where the day of the first dawn has and is being celebrated globally. Governor Oyetola, who spoke through his deputy, Mr. Benedict Alabi, stated that Olojo Festival emphasized the place and the importance of Ile-Ife to creation and humanity, while also advocating the need to join hands together to celebrate it and accord it its rightful place. According to the state EMSMA, the significance of the festival is in tandem with the philosophy of his administration on economic repositioning by giving a boost to cultural tourism promotion aimed at fostering youth employment, creating wealth, and preserving the cultural heritage, among others. Governor Oyetola assured that government will continue to do all within its power to protect the people, provide an enabling environment for a prosperous, secure, and progressive Osun. At the occasion, the traditional chieftains and Yoruba religion believers took turns to pay homage to the revered monarch, offering prayers and blessings for his peaceful reign and prosperity of the country. In the same vein, adherents and worshippers of Yoruba religion were also opportuned to display their beliefs and culture. The cultural groups, including Akorin Oodua, among others, had time to entertain participants at the epoch-making event. Atibari Chimakiti, OSBC News.
The Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps is to deploy 30,000 operatives to ensure peace during the upcoming general election in Nigeria. Nigeria's most populous nation is built for another general election starting on February 25 next year, when the President, Vice President, and National Assembly members will be elected. A crowded field of 18 political parties are expected to field candidates in a landmark election viewed by analysts to be a pre-horse trade between Labour Party, People's Democratic Party, and the ruling All Progressive Congress APC. Speaking at the Nigeria Forum in Abuja today, the Commandant General of the NSCDC, Dr. Ahmed Audi, said the operatives will be deployed nationwide to maintain peace. According to him, the NSCDC has perfected plans to deploy all resources needed to provide security during the election. That the Corps is poised fairly and ready to apply all arsenals needed to provide security and safety for the election. Despite the court pronouncement on ASU strike ordering lecturers to resume work and continue with their case with the federal government, the union also has the right to seek stay of execution, which allowed tutors to escape being coerced till the higher court of law decides. A legal expert, Mr. Kosin Bodediji, made a clarification shortly after participating on an OSBC TV current affairs program, Saturday Morning Treat. The lawyer urged both government and union to shift ground and arrive at a common ground, saying no government can fulfill all workers' need, as both of them should be considerate for the betterment of the Nigerian youth.
So when an injunction is given against you, you have a right of appeal. So when you exercise that right of appeal, so you can also file what is called a stay of execution. So it means you are asking the court so to allow you not to obey that order, so until the appeal is determined. So I think that is the right that ASU is exercising now. So they are still within the limit of the law. I want to advise both the government and ASU to find a common ground, a workable agreement. So an agreement that can be implemented by successive government. So even other governments after the end of this current administration, so they should find a common ground. The two of them should be ready to shift ground.
As the new academic session begins, Kwara State government has warned school principals not to engage in collection of illegal fees in secondary schools in the state. The government added that new students should not pay more than 7,430 naira and 9,580 naira for the Parents and Teachers Association levy and books for junior and secondary schools, respectively. The permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education and Human Capital Development, Mrs. Mary Adeosun, gave a warning at a meeting held with principals of secondary schools at St. Anthony's Secondary School in Ilorin. Adeosun, in a statement signed by the press secretary in the ministry, Mr. Peter Amogonjayi, warned school principals across 16 local government areas of the state to desist from the collection of all kinds of illegal fees in all public secondary schools of the state. She said any of the principals caught collecting more than the approved PTA levies by the government will be sanctioned according to the civil service rule. She urged the school principals to keep their students indoors, saying any school whose students are found roaming the street risk government sanction. Practical agricultural mechanization is the only panacea to banish hunger and ensure adequate food production and provision for the teeming population of Nigeria, as the country is blessed with adequate wherewithal. An agriculturist, Alhaji Mustafa Olawi, dropped the hint while speaking before OSBC News after featuring on Saturday's morning treat at OSBC TV current affairs program. According to Alhaji Olawi, Nigeria needs only those who are highly committed and empowered fully to cultivate lands for development of domestic and export purposes. He speaks for that.
See any reason why there should be hunger in this nation? None at all. You know why? God has created everything for us to drive away hunger from this country. Even from the heart itself, you can see our vegetation here is so favorable to agriculture. You see the weather condition. You see water here and there that you need to irrigate your farm. But you have to harness all these provisions. If you do not, then God will leave you alone. So we continue to pray, oh God, Bideo, come and give us, he will never come. He has given us every opportunity to do that. One, I said that we have about over 70% of Nigerian population on the field. Farming. It will never work well for this country if you have such number. For 70%, it's not more than 20% that we produce what we eat and export from this country. If we assist the farmers, if we modernize the way we are doing agriculture in this country.
Welcome to our sports segment. .400 chess players appealed to participate in the 2022 National Chess Championship in Nigeria. NCC 2022 begins on the 3rd of next month and lasts until the 9th of next month. The organizers said the event is hosted by Orchid Lekki Chess Club on behalf of Nigeria Chess Federation. They also revealed that as the top players battle for the top shot and the prestigious title of National Chess Championship, there will be other categories to accommodate chess players at all levels. The upcoming chess championship, we have an invitational section where the top 10 rated male and female players will go head-to-head to determine Nigeria's next national champions. The more populated part of the championship will be the open section, which will have a master's category, an open category, and a junior category with under 10, under 14, and under 20 tournaments. Hundreds of children, teenagers, and adolescents are expected to participate in these tournaments. And out of foreign stories, Mali's military-appointed Prime Minister has lashed out at France and the United Nations in a grievance-filled address over his nation's deteriorating security situation while praising the exemplary cooperation with Russia. Details of these and other stories are packaged by Abdul Jalil at DBC.
Addressing the 77th session of the United Nations General Assembly, Abdoulaye Maïga slammed what he called France's unilateral decision to relocate its remaining troops to neighboring Niger amid deteriorating relations with Mali's two-time coup leader Assimi Goïta, while it was Goïta and his allies who overthrew democratically elected president by military force 2 years ago. Mali's prime minister repeatedly referred to a French junta throughout his 30-minute speech. The Malian prime minister also offered a grim assessment of UN peacekeeping mission known as MINUSMA, while openly praising the exemplary and fruitful cooperation between Mali and Russia and the influence of mercenaries. The Wagner Group, a Russian network providing fighters for hire, has been allowed to operate in Mali, despite evidence collected by the UN pointing to their involvement in mass summary execution, arbitrary detention, torture, and forced disappearances in the Central African Republic. The local police chief in Bangladesh, Siraju Huda, said at least 24 people were killed and several dozen more were missing after a boat capsized in the river. The police said the overcrowded boat overturned this afternoon while returning from a Hindu temple on the other side of the river Karato at border area in Panchaga district. The police chief also said divers and residents recovered at least 24 bodies, adding that at least 12 women and 8 children were among the dead. He said many of the passengers swam ashore. Another police officer said up to 25 people were still missing, while at least 10 people were rescued and sent to hospital. Abdul Jalil at BBC OSBC News.
We now go on a short break. Deadline. We'll be back in a moment. Food is unarguably the most important basic need of man, followed by clothing and shelter. In the past time, Nigeria was considered as one of the leading nations in agricultural production, as each region could boast of producing both food and cash crops it has comparative advantage on. These things began gradually to change following the discovery of crude oil in the Niger Delta area. Agriculture took the backstage. In this Deadline report, Oluwatobiloba Odunuga examines the causes of the shortfall in food production that has plunged the nation into this abysmal problem and the way forward. This report.
An indispensable prerequisite for the survival of mankind and its economic activities. Food is different from other commodities because everybody needs it for survival, and it's an indispensable factor in a nation's quest for economic growth and development. Nigeria, the largest black nation in the world, is naturally blessed with rich arable lands from the east to the west, south to north. In the time past, every region of the country is known by the food and cash crops produced by people of the region. For example, the southwest had enormous comparative advantage on the production of cocoa for both local consumption and export. The southeast gloried in the planting of palm trees and production as palm oil. The famous groundnut pyramid was domiciled in the north, and the regions witnessed economic growth from the proceeds of agricultural products. In those states, government, especially in the southwest, built farm settlements for farmers for increased food production. This began to change following the discovery of crude oil in the Niger Delta region. The law for what many considered as free money brought about from the exploration of crude partially led to the neglect of the sector. Agriculture then ceased to be the mainstay of Nigeria's economy. It now took the backstage. This is coupled with the fact that most of the food needs in Nigeria is produced by peasant farmers who lack capital, skills, energy, and other viable ingredients to produce on large quantity that will meet the requirements of the growing population. Thus, food insecurity in Nigeria becomes a recurrent and double-digit problem. The country's focus on food production also shifted to importation of food, which has further made the cost of food to rise, thus making it more difficult for the people to access basic balanced diets, according to some agriculturists, including Dr. David Ogunshade, Alhaji Mustafa Olawi, Ademola Adetunji, and Mr. Idris Balarade, who lamented the hardship that farmers are going through at this trying period, maintained that practical agricultural mechanization is the only panacea to the banishment of hunger and to ensure adequate food production for the teeming population of Nigeria, adding that the country is blessed with adequate wherewithal. They attributed the shortfall in food supply leading to hike in food prices to insecurity, policy inconsistency on the part of government, lack of modernized farming to make the sector attractive to youth, high interest rates, infrastructure decay, among others. They enjoin the government to come to the aid of farmers by providing adequate resources for farmers to engage in large-scale farming.
The cost of food production in Nigeria is extremely high. For now, we are paying about 17,000 naira to plow an acre of land. The same thing with rigging and harrowing. So then the cost of fertilizer last year it was about This time around it's about 12,000. Now it's about 23,000 per pound. So these are then plus insecurity. You know, a lot of our farmers could not go to their farm in the last 6 or 9 months because of these herders who are destroying their crops and even raping their wives and children. So, in phases of insecurity, then farmers cannot produce. So that is why we are having the prices now as high as when even the dry season.
But I don't see any reason why there should be hunger in this nation. None at all. You know why? God has created everything for us to drive away hunger from this country. Even from the heart itself. You can see our vegetation here is so favorable to agriculture. You see the weather condition. You see water here and there that you need to irrigate your farm. But you have to harness all these provisions. If you do not, then God will leave you alone. We have about over 70% of Nigerian population on the field farming. It will never work well for this country if you have such number. For 70%, it's not more than 20% that we produce what we eat and export from this country. If we assist the farmers, if we modernize the way we are doing agriculture in this country.
If there's a government program on agriculture, there should be evaluation team so that we can know if that budget meant for Anchor Boras program, that money I marked for agric, is actually being utilized for the purpose. We won't be here talking about food insecurity in this country.
Some economists, including Mr. Abdul Qudus Isiaka and Mr. Bolaji Okusaga, also lamented the hardship posed on Nigeria with the level of the nation's inflation rate, adding that the federal government needs to revise its policy so to save the nation's economy. They noted that only active production could save the country economy from total collapse.
2020, and according to the National Bureau of Statistics, it came in at 33%. We believe, most analysts believe that it's way higher than that at this time. And, especially if you look at what, the manufacturers are doing in terms of downsizing, you want to imagine that many people would have lost their jobs over the period. And so, in a way, we're also looking at this inflation affecting, workers.
20.52% inflation in Nigeria is, it's a bit worrying. I think the last time we saw this was sometime in 2005, since probably September or so in 2005. That was when we saw inflation at this level before. So, that's to tell us that something needs to be done from the fiscal and monetary angle to really put a rein on inflation.
Food per hectare is very low because of the absence of mechanized forms of agriculture. The guys who actually produce this 1.5 million tons, a host of them are local farmers, just purely doing subsistence farming. Now imagine if we can deploy some form of mechanized agriculture, improve our yields per hectare, improve our storage facilities so that these raw materials can be stored in such a way that they don't get bad and there's access to markets, so that industry, some form of value chain approach can actually make use of this local tomato. Nigeria will make so much money. We spend in the range of $400 to $500 million annually, just purely importing tomato paste and puree. It is a sad affair because we've got local capacity to actually produce it.
Speaking with OSBC News on the government's efforts at ensuring sustainability in the food production, Osun State Commissioner for Agriculture and Food Security, Mr. Adedayo Adewole, and the General Manager of Osun State Agric Development Corporation, Mr. Oyewole Adebayo, maintained that the hike in the food prices is a global crisis coupled with the Russian-Ukraine war, climate change, and insurgency attacks on farmers in some parts of the country, which has made farmers not to engage in farming as usual. They added that the government is doing everything possible to engage more farmers in large-scale farming with provision of basic amenities such as land, funds, and good road network, provision of tractors for mechanization farming, among others.
What we're doing to curb it is one of the Nigerian CARES program, which is supposed to help the poorest of the poor, where we identified poor people in various states It's a World Bank grant. We've been able to identify some people. We're supplying them with maize, cassava, processing equipment. Also poultry production, we've aggregated them into groups. These different groups are working, we've been supplying them. And we're hoping that the World Bank people will come and see the work we've done. Also roads, we've been able to at least do about 5 rural roads so that transportation of crops out of the farm can be easier for farmers. That way you don't lose, because most of the food products actually gets wasted between the farm and the market. So actually giving them good roads for transportation will make life easier for them.
The cost of production is increasing. Cost of using the tractors, because the diesel sells for about between 790 and 810 per litre. So for you to hire a tractor for 1 acre now is 12,000. So which most of them could not afford. Except the government comes in by subsidizing some things for them. The cost of fertilizer is beyond the reach of the farmers. So that is preventing them from making cultivating huge expanse of land, which can result in high productivity.
It will be recalled that the World Bank had earlier warned that inflation will push more Nigerians into poverty by the end of 2022, hence the need for urgent actions to end the looming crisis. Oluwa Tobiloba, Odunuga for Dateline.
The controversy trailing the proposed removal of fuel subsidy from the 2023 budget by the federal government has continued to generate divergent views among Nigerians. Those, while some expressed strong conviction that it is a necessary evil and will greatly benefit the masses on the long run, others believe it will further compound the hardship already being experienced by Nigerians. Let's join Oluwatobiloba Odunuga again for details.
The issue of subsidy removal has been generating heated controversies among Nigerians, most especially now that the price of premium motor spirit, popularly known as petrol, has remained unstable for quite some time. The federal government has linked the inconsistency in the prices of petrol to the subsidy regime. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, Zainab Ahmed, had before the House of Representatives maintained that the new plan, which is contained in the 2023 to 2025 medium-term expenditure framework and fiscal strategy paper, the subsidy removal will be implemented by the first half of 2023. The Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, who noted that if the federal government is not ending the subsidy regime, it will have to borrow more than 6 trillion naira to offset the budget deficit that will result from it. Reacting to this development, a public affairs analyst, Mr. Kola Bangbola, stated that subsidy removal is a necessary evil that will benefit the masses on the long run. According to him, what Nigerians need at this trying moment in our history is to ensure they elect leaders that will adequately manage the country's resources for the overall benefit of the people. He, however, enjoined the federal government to put in place watertight policies that will help cushion the effect of the removal.
In this coming dispensation, according to the program of this particular government, you are telling us by next year, Dangote refinery will begin to operate to its full capacity. And they said as well, they are working on other refineries. So if we are not importing again, the cost of taking crude abroad and the cost of taking it back, I think the money will be in our economy. The capital flight will no longer be there.
Speaking to the contrary, however, another analyst, Dr. Rotimi Fagbili, maintained that subsidy removal on the fuel will cause a lot of havoc to Nigerians.
It's going to be very, very terrible on the citizens of Nigeria, because fuel is applicable to everybody. Fuel is what drives the economy.
He noted that removing the subsidy while there is no refinery means that Nigerian people who are largely living beyond the poverty line will have to buy petroleum products at unaffordable rates.
US dollars is to Naira. And you are now bringing another problem to compound the already problems in Nigeria. I don't think it will speak well for Nigerians who it will not speak well at all.
Dr. Fagbili and Mr. Bambola, who raised concern on the timeline of the subsidy removal, noted that Nigerian businesses rely on the power generators to function due to country's electric power supply, adding that there is need for the government to revitalize the nation's refineries in order to revamp the nation's economy. Oluwa Tobiloba Odunuga reporting for OSBC News.
Death penalty is authorized by Section 33 of the 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Report, however, indicates that over 3,000 inmates have been on the death row in the last 10 years, without the ratification of their death warrant by state governors. DATELINE today focuses on the implication of non-execution of prisoners on death row on the society. Oluchi Amada now brings details.
Also known as death penalty, is a state-sanctioned practice of killing a person as a punishment for a crime. In most countries of the world where capital punishment is being upheld, including Nigeria, crimes that are punishable by death commonly include serious crimes against a person, such as murder, armed robbery, aggravated cases of rape, including child sexual abuse, terrorism, war crimes, crimes against humanity, genocide, treason, drug trafficking, among others. In Nigeria, public execution of notorious criminals at the beach were carried out in the 70s and 80s till the early 90s, but death sentence still remains in the country's constitution and is being carried out where necessary. Reports have, however, shown that Nigeria, which is one of the 18 countries in Africa still retaining death sentence as a punitive measure, now have about 3,145 inmates that are currently on death row in custodial centers across the country. Figures on the website of the Nigerian Correctional Service indicated that as of July this year, there were a total of 74,675 inmates in the country, comprising 52,714 awaiting trial and 21,961 convicted inmates. The report further showed that the total number of male inmates was 73,139, while there were 1,536 female inmates. Some lawyers and human rights activists have consistently expressed concern over the fate of inmates as most state governors refuse to sign the death warrant, leading to the rising number of inmates on death row. A legal practitioner, Mr. Abimbola Ige, explained that the process involved before the death warrant could be signed by any governor is cumbersome as a result of the delay in justice dispensation in Nigeria.
We need to find out whether the rights of appeal of such a conflict have been exhausted. What I mean by exhaustion is, has the matter proceeded to the highest court in the land? So if the exhaustion of the rights of the conflict has not been done, the governor does not have any right to sign into law.
On the other side is the rate at which our courts conduct trials is so slow to the extent that a case that ordinarily shouldn't have taken more than 3 to 5 months will take 6 years or more.
Speaking in the same vein, another legal practitioner, Mr. Kolapo Alimi, said the indefinite detention of inmates on death row in the correctional facilities across the country could not be justified under the law, adding that governors owes it a duty to sign the death warrant for proper execution, particularly on inmates whose cases have been decided by the Supreme Court, the apex court in the land.
We send signal to other criminals that if at all they commit a crime and they are prosecuted and they are convicted, at least for robbery, murder, and so on and so forth, they will still be in the prison enjoying their life. It is a very bad sign. However, a governor should not rush to sign it. However, after the Supreme Court judgment, it is not good for any governor not to sign it. But it is not a good omen for our legal system.
Stakeholders have continued to raise concern about the consequences of governors' reluctance to sign the death warrant. This has also brought to the fore the renewed call for the abolition of capital punishment in Nigeria, has been embraced in some countries of the world. The supporters of the call for the abolition of death sentence, including Amnesty International, will declare that death penalty breaches human rights, stating that the right to life and right to live free from torture or cruel, inhuman or degrading treatment are protected under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
We will continue to urge, government and the Nigerian National Assembly to look into the issue of abolition of death penalty in Nigeria. But it's a very complicated matter because of our legal system, because issue of death penalty is not a federal thing. It is mainly with states, and it has also some religious, implications. There are some people whose religion accepts, the death penalty. So this is an issue that all Nigerians, irrespective of their faith or political party affiliation, should take a hard look at the death penalty. Mr. Abimbola Ige, who threw his weight behind the call, noted that over the years, the inclusion of death sentence in the Constitution has not reduced crime rates in any way. More so, since the Supreme Court has said keeping an inmate on death row for too long constitutes a torture. Government should set a time limit so that anyone waiting to be executed should be committed to life imprisonment instead of allowing them to go through harrowing experience of expecting to die every day.
If somebody has committed an offense and he has been found guilty of that offense and sentences have been pronounced against that person, the governor and the president still have the right under the law to forgive such a person by way of giving state pardon. If the governor exercises such a power to forgive, you can still not blame the governor for not citing death warrant.
There was a time, I think in Ibadan or somewhere in the southwest here, where execution by fire squad in those days was ongoing, and some people were still pickpocketing. Some people have been fired, and some people are still pickpocketing, stealing people's phone, stealing people other materials and all that, and they were caught.
The effect of capital punishment has not really helped our matter in this country.
Speaking to the contrary, Mr. Kola Poalemi believed that total abolition of death sentence will encourage many more to go into crimes, adding that it should be retained for serious crimes such as murder, armed robbery, among others.
Capital sentence majorly for deaths, for murder and armed robbery. It says it should be abolished. It means whoever killed will be given lesser punishment. No, that should not be the intent of our law. Whoever killed should be killed. And for robbery, in the process of robbery, killing will occur, maiming will occur, raping will occur, so many things. Actually going along with armed robbery. So I don't see any reason why we should abolish capital punishment for those ones. But for others cases, we might lessen it.
Reports say as of this year, 55 countries have retained capital punishment. 109 countries have completely abolished it for all crimes, while 7 countries have abolished it for ordinary crimes while maintaining it for special circumstances, such as war crimes. Oluchi Amuda, OSBC News.
That sentence concludes today's edition of Dateline on OSBC TV. Thank you for watching. It was produced by Abdul Jalil at DBC. Babatunde Bolatito is my name. Good night.